There it is. Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to talk about foundational work, which is kind of an annoying concept to me a little bit, but I'm going to get to that in a second. So, first and foremost, welcome to I Woke Up Like This. This is episode number 19. I'm pretty impressed that I've been able to stick to something like this for 19 weeks. Today was especially hard. Getting up, not gonna lie, got my coffee right here. I press the snooze button a lot, and I don't typically do that, but that's not what you're here to listen to. So we're talking about foundational work today. So this comes down to core and pelvic health. So I have a lot of conversations with different people from all walks of life about core and pelvic health because there is a common misconception is becoming a more well-known thing that, you know, it's out there in the public, but people are still associating it with being that pregnant thing or that postpartum thing. And while yes, this is an aspect of it, it can also be caused by age. All of our muscles get a little bit weaker as we age. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, right? So our muscles are getting a little bit weaker as we age. Athleticism, if there was any high impact created within the pelvic floor, or if the core pressure system wasn't managed properly and it's trying to escape through the easiest places in our body, which would be the linea alba. And for women, it's a little bit more we're a little bit more prone to it because we have two openings on our pelvic floor, so much easier for pressure to escape through there. And if we're not managing properly, it's going to try to escape. You know, long conversation, whatnot. So, back to what we were talking about. Athleticism, any kind of surgery that was performed around the pelvic area can create, a little bit of a disconnect, as well as weakness as well. And if we don't learn to strengthen those things, we're going to maintain that weakened state. So especially as women, I find, and this is in my experience, having talked about goals and needs of, at this point, quite a few women. I'd say we're going into a couple hundreds now. There's this whole aesthetic thing that we're talking about. So I want to lose XYZ pounds. I want to fit into a size whatever jeans. I want to fat loss, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of women, it's getting better. Definitely, again, things are changing. So when it comes to strength training, there are more women who are interested in developing their strength, but there is still a huge aesthetic component to it. So we always focus on those muscles that are going to get us to that aesthetic approach when we are not really paying attention to those innermost muscles that are going to build the foundation. So I know you've probably heard this a lot. I've heard it a lot. I've said it a lot. You know, we want a strong foundation so we can build on top of that. Think about a house and its foundation. And yes, totally get it. But it's the foundation in this case that is going to keep you symptom free. You do not need to spend your life peeing your pants just because you had a baby, took part in athletic sports, had surgery, are getting older. This is not something that you need to deal with. Incontinence is the number 2 reason people end up in extended care situations as they age after Alzheimer's. That is crazy because it is something that can be managed. We're just not taking the time to do that. The media is busy selling you Depends instead of giving you the information that you need to help strengthen those muscles. Okay, I went off on a little bit of a tangent. So back to it. So we're building those foundations. We're creating strength in the base so we can, like I said, manage those symptoms, make sure they stay away. Unfortunately, in a circumstance where the muscles have been particularly weakened for whatever reason, in my experience, it happens to be childbirth, I do need to periodically go back and make those exercise, pay more attention to those strategies that I know work for me, all those things, because I just had a cold. And my pelvic floor is super weak right now. So I spent a lot of time coughing, a lot of time sneezing, not really paying attention. At the beginning of the cold, everything was being managed properly. But as the week went on, and now my allergies are kicking in as well, things had gotten a little bit weaker. So the idea of, okay, I just have to get through, these next couple weeks of doing this, this, and that, and then I'm fine, maybe not the case. If you're lucky, it could be the case, but it might not be the case. And there's nothing wrong with that. What is wrong with making your inner muscles, your inner core, the things that you might not possibly see, part of your regular routine? What is wrong with you using strategies such as exhaling through the entire movement or blow before you go, so exhaling during the hardest part of the movement, feeling that lift in the pelvic floor, feeling that contraction of the abdominals? What's wrong with making that part of your all-the-time workout? Once you practice it enough, you stop thinking about it so much, and then it becomes more natural. So it just becomes part of your workout. Some things need to purposely be added in there. Nothing wrong with that. But if we rush the process and we just go right back to those workouts that we did right from the get-go, or we did before we noticed any symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction, there is a good chance that you are going to exacerbate the situation, which is what happened to me. I talk about it all the time. 8 months postpartum with Sienna, I peed my pants, doing nothing. I was cooking in the kitchen. I didn't sneeze. I didn't cough. I didn't jump. I wasn't running. None of the typical, symptoms of, oh my goodness, I peed myself. It just happened. And I had zero control. There was nothing I can do about it. So let's start to develop a little bit of awareness for the pelvic floor. We often are disconnected with it, especially if we've had any trauma towards it. But just as a society too, we're kind of taught like, pelvic floor, vaginas, we don't want to talk about them, which is, totally backwards because they're such an important part of our life. So if you want to start developing that awareness for your pelvic floor, next time you're in the bathroom, start to go pee and see what happens. Like, pay attention. See what happens when you stop the stream of urine. This is a really great way to start to develop an awareness for your pelvic floor. There's other strategies like the core breath. I have a video on the YouTube channel about that. It should be still there. I'm going to double check that later, make sure it's still there. But it's definitely on the Facebook page for sure. But yeah, just starting to develop that awareness. That is key. That is, step number 1. Breath is step number 2. So those things I was talking about, blow before you go, blowing through the entire movement, feeling where you are supported, feeling where you don't feel any heaviness or pressure within the pelvic floor. These are all really super important things, and we don't pay attention to them. So how do we start paying attention to them? I can help you with that. So everyone requires slightly different approaches to it. Everyone requires certain cues that will resonate with them a little bit more. And this is some of the stuff that we definitely talk about in personal training. Whenever we do the free goal and mobility assessment, I always ask about your pelvic health with your permission. I will ask you first, and then we will kind of go in depth about things. And we definitely touch on this in Yoga for Core and Pelvic Health. So every session, and there's a new one starting in 2 weeks. There's a new evening class on Thursdays, 5:45, plug. So this is what we do in Core and Pelvic Health. We will spend the 6-week, in this particular situation, it's 7-week session, really focusing on specific strategies so you get a good feeling about them. But the beauty of the small group classes, which have no more than 7 people, is I have no issue with you at all in the middle of class being like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's totally okay. Do it. The beauty of these classes is that they are kind of part private, part group. So it kind of has that outline where there should be a lot of dialogue back and forth. And if you don't feel comfortable about it, you can definitely talk to me about it after class. But we can have that dialogue back and forth in class, and it's beneficial because other people within the class might feel like they have that question as well. These things are very second nature to me, and I do my best to kind of break it down in layman's terms. So there's probably some people out there that are like, I know what core and pelvic health is. What are you talking about? Because I'm really just trying to make it simple as possible. Sometimes I get overly complicated, but at the end of the day, I want to make it nice and simple. So, core and pelvic health classes, we spend the entire 7-week session focusing on specific strategy, specific cues, specific movements that might not 100% resonate with you. it's not to say you won't get something out of it, but I'm really trying to touch on all these different levels and give time with those strategies so you can see how it develops within your body. If it's something that you feel like is just not working, that's where private sessions would come in. Much more one-on-one. We get straightforward, to the point, right away, but there's always options. There always is. I try my best to provide them as much as I can. So that's all I've got today. This one was a little bit like, a lot of information coming at you. I'm coming off a crazy weekend. It was like birthday weekend this weekend. Myself and my daughter have back-to-back birthdays. So I definitely feel like this morning was a little bit like, oh my God, what is happening? But I didn't want to miss out. Again, I just really love to discuss foundations and see where we can help you out, because it really breaks my heart to see women posting about returning to their fitness programs and experiencing things like incontinence, or feeling self-conscious about it, or feeling self-conscious about their diastasis recti, feeling insecure about it really breaks my heart. It really does, because these, again, as I said, these are not things that we need to live with. These are things that can be managed. And it's super important to make sure you don't just find someone who's had a baby and happens to be a fitness professional, but somebody who is actually trained and qualified in these things, so they can give you the full support that you need. That's what it comes down to. So I hope that some of this resonated with you. So when it comes to the qualifications, the coaching, I mean, there's different kinds out there. There's some amazing core and pelvic health courses out there, as well as a lot more of the, not all of them, pardon me, but a lot more of the pre and postnatal courses are also covering a lot of pelvic health, which is how I kind of like entered in through that. I started specializing in pre and postnatal, and it was actually surprisingly the anatomy portion of it that really got my attention. So that's where I'm at today. So again, if you are interested in discovering more about your core and pelvic health, through breath, through awareness, through practice, Yoga for Core and Pelvic Health starts in 2 weeks, 7-week session. I'll stick the link in the description once this is all done. And another one, I mean, they're periodically starting every 5 to 6 to 7 weeks, depending on the time of year. So definitely check back frequently. And thank you so much for joining me this morning. It is 7 a.m. For those of you who are with me live, I couldn't see your names. I don't know why, but I saw the little, numbers pop up. So clearly something's still wonky somewhere in here. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in. I will be popping in and out of Instagram today throughout the day. And as always, questions, comments, concerns, let me know, slide them into my DMs, and that's all I got. I always find it odd ending, because it involves pushing buttons on 2 different devices. So yeah, that's all, folks. I will be back here next Monday, 7 a.m. Hopefully a little less frazzled, definitely a little bit more awake. And I will talk to you soon. If you got any questions, or if there are any topics you'd like me to discuss further, let me know, because it helps me when I know how to help you. That's all. All right, thanks again, and have a great day. Bye.